Mimosas with Michael. Mimosas with Michael. Mimosas with Michael. Yay!
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Michael Cologne with Mimosas with Michael. A couple of new things. I got a new headset because I'm doing this more and more, and I had that really nice one. But now this one has a microphone, so I feel all high tech. And I have a plant behind me now because, I want to make it feel all homey and stuff. So this week I have a really cool guest. His name is Maxwell. Did I say that correct? It's Maxwell Ivey, right?
Yes.
And you are known as the blind blogger.
Right. Yeah.
And you reached out to me because you wanted to be on the show, and I was excited because I think you have a cool story, and I think people should meet you. And so, I invited you to be on the show, and here we are. Now we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Here we are, and I love how you're going out of your way to bring the audience into your space and how you're progressing with the podcast, but also you're doing a really good job of describing things to those people that are only going to be listening to this, which is kind of good for people who are visually impaired, but something that most hosts don't generally do very well naturally. So,
thank you.
I'm impressed. That's a very good start, but it just shows that you really appreciate your audience. That most of them are going to be listening to it on their phone, and even if they're watching it, they're going to be watching it on a small screen. So you should tell them what's going on. I like that.
Yeah, well, like I said, this is a podcast. It's mostly audio, but in the course of going through COVID and stuff, I started doing it a little bit more online, so I could put it on YouTube and Instagram Live. I know you're having issues today with your camera, which is fine. Again, we can just talk, and really, it's mostly just about people hearing your story.
Right, and I think what we're doing now, I've like I told you a few minutes ago, when you asked me if your camera was working, I said, well, I can't tell you if mine is working, so there's no way I can tell you if yours is working or not. So,
yeah.
And this is basically how it goes. You can either decide to let the little minor setbacks keep you from enjoying the experience of having a conversation and posting it to encourage other people. Or you can decide just to heck with it. We're going to do it the best we can do it today. And if people really want to be entertained, educated, or inspired, they'll put up with the minor technical stuff. And one of the things I'm loving about Corona is all the big-time radio and television personalities who are having to struggle with the same kind of issues that us podcasters do every day, and seeing how badly some of those, people making six figures are screwing it up on camera. It's really freeing podcast hosts to think, hey, if they can screw it up, then nobody will care when I do.
Well, that's true. And it is becoming, after like 4 or 5 months, sort of like a new norm where people are just used to, all of my nightly shows now and a lot of my news I watch. It's really just like two people sitting at a monitor, jumping back and forth and sort of talking. And, after like the last couple of months, it's sort of like, I'm kind of used to it now. I mostly because I've been podcasting for the last 3 years, so
yeah.
We're just all adapting, and because it's something we're going through globally, it's like we're all kind of adapting in this together.
Right, and hopefully we will have the opportunity to adapt all over again in say 6 months to a year and a half when this is either behind us or at least controlled enough where we can live like it's pretty much behind us. Although I'm kind of hoping that a lot of the people that have been changed by Corona will continue to be more like the new person and less like the old one.
Yeah, I think that's I don't want to say anything good about this because of what we're going through is definitely very difficult. But it is interesting how it is sort of teaching us a lot about who we are as a society, who we are as people, how we communicate with. There's people that I haven't talked to in so long that are just reaching out to check in, and it's kind of nice because for the first part of the virus, we were all just sitting here, and it was just like, what do we do? Like, and people were just like, hey, are you okay? Like, I was just thinking about you the other day, and you're like, wow, it's really nice to like communicate with people I haven't talked to in so long. So that's sort of like one of the positive drawbacks of this.
Yeah, and and one of the things I've been hearing from friends of mine that are involved in organizations are telling me that they are getting more attendance and more financial support since going virtual than they did when people used to have to get in their car and drive to a meeting and just drive back home afterwards. So there are some benefits to it. Most notably is just changing our mindset and reminding us of what we're capable of and what's possible if we keep our hearts and minds open, if we're willing to to just be okay. I don't care how silly this makes me look. This works for me. I don't care if I'm going to fall on my butt. I'm not going to be the only one doing it because there's so many people trying things they haven't tried in a while or ever. So, but back to my story for people who don't know me yet. I am known internationally as the blind blogger. I grew up in a family of carnival owners, and all I ever wanted to do was to be in the business and someday run the Midway. And I actually did that along with my father for about 15 years. I did have to find ways to overcome the fact that I was losing my vision and would eventually go totally blind. But we did that. I graduated from traditional high school and college, and I'm one of the few blind Eagle Scouts.
Oh, nice.
And after my dad's death, the carnival, we couldn't keep it going. It went out of business, and I needed something else to do. So I decided to start helping other people sell their surplus rides because I had just had to sell all of my rides because I no longer had a reason to own them.
Yeah.
And I started the Midway Marketplace, which was brand new to me. This was in 2007, before WordPress, Wi-Fi, or Facebook. And I had to learn so many things, including how to hand code HTML.
Oh, wow.
People started talking about how inspiring I was, that I kept overcoming obstacles and just finding a way to get to the next step, that they wanted me to share more of my experiences being a blind entrepreneur. And that led to the blindblogger.net.
Okay.
Where I do share my experiences, things that have happened to me in my life, either recently or in the past, and the lessons I think people can take from those experiences. I've written 4 books, including my latest, The Blind Blogger's First Speaking and Signing Adventures, which just came out this week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I sent you a link to it, but I didn't think you would get it, as you were preparing to do your interview. So it's in your inbox. But hey, I know, you got to get in the proper mindset before you press record. So I'm not worried about it.
Well, I usually do. I'm really good at researching, but yeah, I think you and I had some scheduling conflicts, and it happens. But I knew you wrote books. I just wasn't aware that it came out this week of the recording. By the way, this
of the recording.
Was recorded in advance, so by the time people hear this, it'll have been out for a couple of weeks. So we'll definitely put a link down in the show notes so people can find it and look for it and find out more about you.
Oh, yeah. And then in addition to that, I've been on over 200 podcasts. I've coached people to be podcast guests. I've gotten people interviews on radio shows and TV. I've traveled the country solo, sung in public, shared my story at national conferences and local advocacy groups. And I got a little show called What's Your Excuse?
Yeah. That's pretty much, right there. That's everything. Wow.
Yeah, I know, man. Every time I say it, I'm like, Max, are you sure you don't need to, take a few of these things out of this? Because it's starting to sound, tall tale-ish, No,
look, as we get older, we've lived a life, and it's kind of like it's accumulation of things, So I don't think it's a tall tale. It's just like, it's like your life. It's the things that you've gone through.
Yes. Yeah.
That sort of make who you are.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely who I am. It's stuff I've gone through. It's things I've learned along the way. But being a Texan, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if some people hear me tell the story and they're like, man, I've actually had a couple of people reach out to me. I've actually had a couple of people reach out to me over the years who are like, Max, I appreciate your story and all, but you depress me, man. Because I haven't done nowhere near as much as you have. And I'm like, well, if you want to get undepressed, do something about it. What can you do today,
That's so funny. Not funny, haha, but like it's very interesting that they look at that as like, oh, I'm so depressed because of all the things you did, rather than like, because I tell people, I go, no, don't let it depress you, let it inspire you. You know, like in my 20s, and I've told this story so many times if you listen to the podcast, so I'm just telling another story, but I'll just tell you that like in my 20s, I just kind of like, putzed around. But when I hit 30 and I walked off my job, you know, I spent the last 15 years just so focused and kind of like you hear my story now, you're like, wow, you did all that. But the truth is like I started so much later in life than most people. Right. So it's like, I kind of had to find my direction. And I feel like that's what my 20s were good for. It's kind of like, I tried this, it didn't work. I mean, I knew I always wanted to be a writer and I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker and all these things, but it wasn't like I didn't have the direction I needed because I needed to find those routes that didn't work. You know what I'm saying? So, are you there? Uh-oh, well, we may have lost him, everybody. Okay, everybody, we're back. We had a small technical issue, but we are back. Welcome to the new age with internet and everything. Things happen. How are you? So you're good. You're back.
I'm good. Yeah, okay. I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the difficulties with being visually impaired is that everything I do, I have to have a screen reader tell me what's going on the computer.
Okay.
So when I'm doing an interview, there's no way to hear, for me to hear it and you not to hear it. So I have to turn my screen reader off. So I basically have no idea what's going on when it stops doing whatever it is it's doing. And in fact, I'm going to be looking into this. I know that at one time there was a company that made a split headset for the visually impaired, where you could plug it into a computer, and on one ear you would get the computer voice, on the other end you'd get the person's voice. And that's something I'm going to need to check into, because that would make things as a podcast host and guest so much easier.
Yes.
And it would probably be worth the additional cost, because I'm sure it'll be more expensive than a regular headset, because just about anything developed specifically for the visually impaired usually costs a lot more money.
That is so disheartening to hear. So disheartening.
Yeah, but they will tell you that that it costs more money to develop things like that, and there's a smaller audience to pay for it once it gets to market. It still doesn't make it fun or something you like to hear, but they can at least make a reasonable argument for it.
I guess so, but yeah, it still is very disheartening to hear.
Yeah. It's just like when we have discussions about big pharma and them getting the return on their investment for a new drug. So, but it's one of those things you live with, and thankfully, with Apple at least, you don't have to pay extra for third-party software to make it talk.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Apple.
Yes. Yeah. They've been very helpful. Steve Jobs, many years ago, decided that at some point in the future, the audience was going to get a lot older and would appreciate being able to have screen magnification or text-to-speech built into their devices. And that was before anybody realized how many sighted people would be using devices with speech on them. I mean, that was before GPS that talked to you became a thing.
Yeah.
He saw it way in advance and decided to embed that in the operating system. So not only is it part of the Apple from the beginning, whenever they update the software, it doesn't cost me any extra to update my OS than it would somebody who doesn't need their computer to talk, which is really cool with Apple.
Yeah, well, that's nice. I recently just, I'm such a PC and Android guy. I've been like that for a while, but I needed a new computer, and so I upgraded to the new Mac OS Pro.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I need a power. Because between editing the podcast and I'm studying photography and I'm writing a lot and I'm doing movies, I was like, I needed a computer that was very hardy, especially in the film industry. And then it was time for me to upgrade my phone, and I was like, well, damn it, I already have an iPad that I use on set, so I might as well get an iPhone. And now it's and I have the Samsung Watch, and I was like, I kind of need the watch. I mean, it's just if one doesn't get you, the other one will. But being part of the PC and then Android world is I like that everything Google talks to each other. I like that because, I travel. Well, I traveled a lot for work, and it's very nice that everything talks to so you kind of pick up where you leave off, and that's what I like about the Apple world. So it's if it's either way. I'm going to either do it through Google or I'm going to do it through Apple. But at least with Apple, but I wish someone had told me, and my friend kept telling me, he goes, you'll like iMessenger. And I'm like, I'm sure I'll like iMessenger. But like, I had no idea how much I would be obsessed with like iMessenger. Like, I was like, the things you can do with it are so, like, I have so many friends that use Apple, and I just didn't know, right? And like, between like my computer and I'm obsessed with it. Like, there's little stickers you can use. You can send scripts and small movies. And I was like, okay, case closed.
Yeah.
Little did I know that it was like, you can send like money to people, or I was like, what? Like, I'm not I'm not unaware of the world. It's just like, when you live in the one sort of like lane, you forget, like, it's just so. Anyway, we didn't have a podcast to talk about this. But it's an interesting side bit. I'm actually in the process of purchasing a Windows computer through the local rehabilitation commission because in my work of promoting people online, I'm wanting to actually start getting contracts from, more traditional businesses as opposed to creative entrepreneurs. And they all use Microsoft Office. They all use Google Mail. They all use things that I'll have to have a Windows PC in order to provide the information in the place they want it, or in order to get their information where I need it. So it's a vicious thing. It's just like a gamer pretty much has to have a PS4 and a Nintendo. And some of them still have to have a gaming computer. For people that are doing what we do, creative entrepreneurs and service providers, you almost have to have Apple and Microsoft in somewhere. So your Samsung Watch will probably stay with you a while because it gives you one place where you're still tapped into Windows if you need to be, I guess. I don't know. Well, the interesting thing is I took, because my PC, I have like a Windows-based tablet, I have a little Samsung tablet. So, and it's a awesome computer, but I actually am recording on it now. So I strictly leave the Windows PC to record the podcast, and it's kind of like I edited on this, and then I can take everything else on so it's separate, but in that sense, just because it makes it easier. I don't want to overwhelm one over the other. But it is interesting how, like, I guess whatever industry you're in requires the tools that you need. Everybody in film uses a Mac, and like I said, I have an iPad that I use for sets specifically, but now that I'm like, it's just interesting how they all talk to each other. It's just fascinating. It's all wonderful stuff.
Right, and the most important thing for a filmmaker or for somebody who edits film or other content is you can basically come to a pause on your Mac and then pick it up on your tablet while you're traveling and pretty much be in the exact same space with the exact same changes and really not have to even, skip a beat, as they say, to continue editing it. And then when you're through recording, all that content is also available on your Mac when you get to a point where you have time to sit down and use the bigger computing power to maybe do some things you couldn't do on the tablet. So it's really cool the way you can, it really makes the workflow process smoother that way. So really,
so that's probably got to be good for you too. Just being like, you're a podcaster and a blogger and all that stuff. So it's nice to have that, because we're not limited. Like, you don't have to sit. Well, I do now because of the quarantine, but you don't have to sit in your room or your house constantly. Like I said, I travel a lot for work. I've recorded this podcast in hotels in other states and other places. So I like that sort of mobility now. Like, I spend a lot of money on technology. People always laugh at me like, you always have to upgrade. And I said, well, because I try to stay. The industry is always changing. I have to change with it. And just because I'm older doesn't mean that I can't understand and learn. Right.
I totally get that. And, I've only recorded 2 podcast episodes so far while traveling. One of them was in a person's house. The other one was in a hotel room. But one of my goals for the future, when Corona is over, is I want to go out and start meeting people in person. I want to do some on location interviews where I can really, do the behind the scenes stuff, have a meal with somebody, follow them to their work or their passion, and really get a sense of their life than you can with the podcast, and then have like the actual interview that will go up on the What's Your Excuse feed,
Yeah.
But then also having a bunch of, like 3-5 minute content that you can use to bring people in and promote what you've just done and allow people to really get to know your guests and
Yeah.
just to see that these people aren't just the person they want you to see when the record button is on.
Yeah.
But really try to find people that that are living their message like I do, like you do, and give people a chance to see those people and how they go about that life as a better way of making the case that we're all just doing the best we can, and the most important thing you can do is to take some sort of action every day towards whatever your goal is.
Well, and this is why I did Mimosas with Michael, because what I liked about well, first of all, I love the alliteration. Let's just get that out of the way. But the other thing is, what I find fascinating is like when on a Sunday morning you go and have brunch with your friends and you just catch up over mimosas, and that was kind of like what I wanted the theme of the show to be, was just like two friends talking over mimosas. Now, it was great when we first started because I could actually have people in the studio, and I borrowed a friend's studio at the time because I was just starting out. But I would actually serve mimosas if people drank. Very little. I didn't, I wasn't like that, but it was just like a way for us to like break the ice, and we'd clink glasses, and it was just like, this is how we're starting the show. So that sort of like energy of people talking in person, I loved. So I think having that is very visceral in the sense that there's an energy you can feed off of each other. So that's what I like about using the sort of software we have now, where even though we can't be in the same room, I can see you and you can hear, and I can hear you, and it can kind of feel like we're together.
Yeah,
I know this is one of those.
Yeah, but the point is, it's about the energy. It's about the connection. It's about the relationship building that we can do.
Yep.
Because you can't get this from a Facebook message. You can't get this from a Twitter chat. You can't get this from a LinkedIn group. This is something you can only get by picking up the phone or getting on Zoom or Skype or somewhere where you can connect with 1, 2, 3 other people and have an actual conversation about things you're passionate about or things you're curious about, and maybe things that you can help each other with, problem solving, that sort of stuff. But the energy level, and that's one of the things that when I talk to my students about why they should be doing these interviews and why they're important, to me, sharing your story, reaching the new audience is great. Building the relationships that can lead to other opportunities, that's really high up there on my list. Yep. But to me, the number one thing, and the reason that when I thought this morning, Max, 2 o'clock, that's not early enough. The reason I do this is the emotional value. I would do this whether I was promoting anything or not, because I just enjoy the conversations, the sharing of stories, the interaction between people we've never met before now. And it would be great if we had a mimosa or a latte or a craft beer or something. But we do what we can. So the emotional value, the energy level boost that you get. I just wrote a post today about my latest book coming out, and one of the things I mentioned in there is, while I had to cut back on a lot of things to find the time to finish the book, one of the things I didn't cut back on was podcast interviews, because they help with your energy level to push through a difficult challenge, like finally publishing a book that you've been working on for 3 years.
Well, not only that, but I think a lot of people are probably much more alone now, unless you live with people in this time. And I think just people's mental mindset is probably like, there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the U.S. We don't right now. Not a lot of states are opening, or if they were, they're closing. So there's so many things right now that I think people are really concerned about. And so having these moments where you can sit and talk to people and feel connected, I think is probably bigger than ever.
Oh yeah, it's definitely true. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing the effects of physical isolation, and how the ones that are dealing with it successfully are doing that by reaching out to other people, either by calling their neighbors or standing outside on their porch, or going online. But we've had, especially among creative entrepreneurs, like filmmakers, podcasters, musicians, there's always been this sense of emotional and creative isolation. that a lot of people never really understood. Well, you're not alone. There are other people in your house. You go to work. There are all these people in your life. But creatively, professionally, the thing that they loved most, they had a sense of isolation. Like it was us against the world, and nobody understands what the heck I'm trying to do or why. And most of them don't think I'll ever be successful at it, because to them, success means I make enough money to quit my job and tell my boss to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've had this problem with creative isolation, which I'm gonna claim that as a new term. But now,
I like it.
But now, we've got this physical isolation that's allowing so many people to understand what people like me and you and millions like us have been going through for years as we try to write a book or record an album or make a movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of true. Like when I write, I have to be isolated just because I have to focus. But when I'm not writing, I can go out of the house. I can have lunch with a friend or go see a movie. And I think because now that's sort of limited, and it's like people are realizing it's like, oh my God, not only am I like we're alone, dare I say. So it is sort of, like I said, it's an interesting mental mindset. And sometimes I keep that in mind when I'm talking to people. I'm like, how are you? And like, are you okay? Are such commonplace questions right now amongst people, because it is very scary. And I'm gonna be legit honest about this. There are days that it is hard, that I want to be creative, and I just feel so isolated and alone. So there's times that it's hard, and I have to own that as a creative. I think other people have to own that as a creative. I can work from home because I have done it when I'm not on set. I work from my desk. I have to create and write and follow up. But man, it's hard to do that all the time.
Yeah, it is.
You kind of just go through these waves.
Yeah, and I think we're sharing some immortal truths here, and that is, even successful people sometimes feel isolated or feel unworthy of their talent or the outside world's opinion of their talent. It's not something, nobody is always 100% on or positive, although some of us are better than others at finding the positive and getting reoriented to that. But this whole idea of the belief that so many more people are successful than really are because they only show you the positive side. The idea that if I'm not killing it all by myself, there's something wrong with me. There are so many of these myths out in the world of creative entrepreneurship that are holding so many people back, because it's like, man, I've been at this 5 years. I'm still not making 7 figures. There must be something wrong. I must be a failure. I'm doing really well with my podcast, but I have to have an editor and a social media person and somebody to find my guests. I'm doing really good, but man, why do I have to have all this help to do this good? There are so many of those things out there that are holding people back. The truth of the matter is, none of us are always as good as we want to be, or as people think we are.
Yeah, but that gives us a reason to keep striving to be better.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is the definition. Because since we're on the topic, what would be your definition of success?
Well, one of the first things I wrote in the first book I published, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, what A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success is, it doesn't matter what I think success is. The important thing is, you have to decide what success looks like for you. And of course, the biggest problem with that is most people are basing their idea of success on other successful people. So for me, when I published my first book, my idea of success was just publishing the book, just getting it out in the world and having one person buy it and another person tell me how good it was.
And then tell other people to buy it. And
Exactly. Now I'm on my 4th book, and I'm openly willing to admit, I'm not going to see myself as a failure if it isn't a bestseller, but I want it to be a bestseller. I want to get to that 100 book review plateau that, tells Amazon and the other folks that you're somebody. I want to get to that. Now, I won't consider myself a failure if I don't get there. But to me, it generally comes back to how many people have I helped is, because one of the main reasons I share my story is to encourage and inspire other people.
Oh, okay.
Let them see that if Max can do it, anybody can do it. Because hey, I'm just a fat, carny kid from Houston, Texas, who had no skills, no money, no experience, no equipment, and so many other things against me. But here I am, 13 years later, 6 years since starting theblindblogger.net, and people know me around the world. I have followers online, and I've reviewed and endorsed products. You know, I have people who are sponsoring my podcast. They're not paying crazy money yet, but they are investing in me and my show.
And that's a big thing right there.
Yeah, and that's another thing. A lot of podcasters won't reach out to potential sponsors because they think they have to get hundreds or thousands of dollars for it to work. But sometimes it can be $800, or sometimes it can be a regular supply of some product or service that you personally need, and it might save you.
Well,
it might save you a good chunk of money.
Exactly. I'd just be happy if like Dom Perignon wants to give me, you know, champagne every time I record. That'd be great for me.
Yeah. Well, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but it's a great goal. But hey, here's something. Yeah, it's a great goal. I love it. I think Mimosas and Michael should be sponsored by Dom Perignon, and I'm gonna post that on Twitter. We're gonna make that happen. Michael and Mimosas sponsored by Dom Perignon. And if not Dom, then there's hundreds of other, and we'll just start reaching out to some of them and go, look, Dom Perignon is thinking about sponsoring the Mimosa with Michael program, but we would really like to support a local, sustainable, just throw in whatever adjectives you want to make it sound like you'd rather work with somebody from the U.S. as opposed to Dom, and somebody will give you money. You just have to frame it in the right way. Tell them a story. I'm not saying lie to them. I'm saying tell them a story. My dad used to say that where he grew up, every guy hunted and fished. And he said the one thing you always wanted to have when you left the house is a story for the game warden.
Interesting. Okay. That's good to know.
So tell them a story. Hey, that's what I do. I help people find their stories and help them tell their stories, because here's the thing.
I'm a storyteller, so it's all good.
Yeah. You didn't book me because of me. You didn't say, Max, I'll let you come on my show because of my books or my podcast or any of that stuff. You wanted me to come on your show because of my story. And that's the way it is for everybody. Your opportunity comes from your story, or to steal from Robin Roberts, your message, or it should be. Yeah. So I'm all about getting people to tell stories. So, if you want Dom Perignon to sponsor this show, and I love you for saying that out loud, I tend to have an ability to either notice those things or get hosts to actually say them without thinking about them. Maybe the things that maybe they never have said out loud before. Is this the first time you've ever said Mimosas with Michael by Dom Perignon?
I mean, I've been saying it from the beginning because I think it'd be kind of cool. But when I just mean I would love for people to give me money. I never want people to. Do you even like Dom Perignon, or have you had it to where you would know? I've had it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
start with a review on their website and tag your own podcast in the review.
Okay, I like that answer. I'm doing it.
That's one. You always remember the best way to come to the attention of people is to solve their problems, answer their questions, or do something they need doing. So I love that quote. That's great. So Dom Perignon, I'm sure that even though they are the name brand, the Cadillac, Mercedes, Lamborghini of fine champagne, I'm sure they could use another review, especially if you tag your show and then asked your followers of your social media accounts to promote the heck out of that particular review of their product. Then you go from there to, hey guys, y'all should sponsor the show, or hey guys, y'all should send me whatever your latest vintage is for me to review it for my podcast. That's where you go from there. So
I love it. Well, thank you for that.
And hopefully people are starting to get some ideas from this example we just did, working on getting Michael the most. And by the way, if they start writing you checks, I will give you my PayPal account for my 10%. Okay.
Fair enough. I love it.
I am a guy who's known for saying, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. I do a lot of asking. I recently had a friend on LinkedIn introduce me to a friend of hers. This was her introduction to her friend. She said, meet Max Ivey. He's a great podcaster and blogger who happens to be blind. He has a wonderful story. He wants to meet you. Now, I'm not sure what he wants from you, but I know he wants something, and I'll be curious to see what it is that he asked for, because I guarantee you it will be entertaining, and both of you will have a great experience as a result.
Well, that's all that matters. I love that.
That was what she told her friend on LinkedIn. I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a really great introduction to me, because it kind of makes me sound like I'm a desperate, needy person who never does nothing but ask for stuff for me or other people.
I guess that's a fair assessment.
but the thing about that is, though, is what do I do? What have I done for the last few years that's allowed me to keep myself going between, book sales and speaking fees and that sort of stuff? I have asked for stuff for other people, and they have hired me to get them on podcasts or to reach out to sponsors or to call companies for potential clients of their service. And I haven't always been successful, but over the years I've learned that no isn't painful. It doesn't hurt me for somebody to say no, and I'm great at it.
That's true.
I just go on to the next yes. I just wait for the next person who's going to be perfect to say yes, and I just keep going. But so it's become a thing. It started when I did the bookings for the family carnival, and I got told no a lot because we had a small carnival and everybody else had 2 or 3 times as many rides as we did.
Yeah.
Then as a podcast, I tell you, I was actually shocked when I started sending out emails 7 years ago to podcast hosts asking if I could come on their shows. I was actually shocked that almost nobody said no, and there were even a few hosts who basically were like, I don't know who you are or why you think you should be on my show, but I've read your story, and I have to have the blind blogger on to find out how the heck somebody that's blind has a blog.
I mean, look, it worked. It works. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it continues to get me. It continues to get me bookings. The carnival life, running a brokerage website, building my own website. All these things go into my story. And here's the cool part: every single person watching us or listening to us, they have just as good a story as I do, if not better. The difference is I got a list. I know all this stuff. I may not remember it all, but I got a list in my head. This is the stuff I've done. This is what I learned from it. Most of the people that are thinking to themselves, well, I couldn't ask Mike to be on this show because I don't have a great story like Mike. The truth is they do. They just have to sit down and make a list. Think about all the things you've accomplished in your life, no matter how big or small. Think about what went into you accomplishing those things. Think about what's unusual or unique about you. For example, before my late mindfulness coach, Miss Penny, the Wonder Dog, passed away, I actually used to get booked on podcasts because people wanted to know about the dog. Because here's how I described Miss Penny. I said, Miss Penny, or it said Max can usually be found working along with his sidekick, Miss Penny, part Greyhound, part Dalmatian, or as he likes to refer to her, a Greymation. And that line got me booked on 3 podcasts.
I love it.
So there's things like that. My editor, Lorraine Regularly of Wording Well, who has helped me with my books. She's also helped me with my website. Without her, there probably wouldn't be 4 books. There might be 1, but none of them would have been as good without her, because she just makes me better, as opposed to, she doesn't take my voice out. She just makes my story clearer, helps me be more me.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And without the books, I was going to say something, and I lost my train of thought there for a second. She said, Max, you got to put some fun facts in your personal bio so people will know you're a real person and they'll want to talk to you. So I put down that one of the things in there is that I like to sing. And in the first year after I got serious about using podcasts to promote myself, I had 10 shows who asked me to sing during the interview as part of the podcast.
And what would you sing?
I sang The River by Garth Brooks. I sang Angels Among Us by Alabama. I sang a song called Buckaroo by Donna Jean Foster from Pennsylvania. I've sang One Good Well by Don Williams. Just country and pop songs that I've learned over the years, and I used to sing going up and down the road, and they're in my head. And the funny thing is I have this friend over in the UK who is a performer, and he's played in front of 3,000 to 5,000 people at a time. And every time he hears that I've done a podcast where I sing a cappella and I sing live on podcast, he's like, Max, you're nuts. There's no way I would do that. That's just way too scary. And I ask him, wait a minute now, you sing on stage in front of 3,000 to 5,000 people and you would be scared to sing on a podcast with just one other person actually hearing you at the time. He said, yeah, that's scary. I'm like,
Because
okay.
It's more intimate. It's very intimate.
Well, maybe. Or maybe it
I'm
just
telling
comes
you.
it could be. Or maybe it just comes down to something that I've been very lucky with, and that is a lot of the time I just don't realize how big a deal the stuff I'm doing is. I don't realize how scary stuff is. I have this phrase, and some people like it, most people hate it. I tell people I'm not smart enough to be scared.
Oh, well,
And some people think it's negative, but other people have said, Max, what you're saying there is you have a wide-eyed, wondrous, childlike approach to everything that you go through in the world.
love it.
And I'm like, yeah, that's true, but I like the way I say it better.
You know what? I love it. I think it's a great way to just to close out the show, because we have hit our mark. But I think there's true.
I'm sorry about that.
No, why? I thought the podcast was great. You're very easy to interview. You clearly have done this before.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, but I understand. Going over means editing. It means more work for you. So I hope I didn't create any work for you, and I've had a great time too.
No,
this has been one of my most fun interviews in a long time.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, one, because we seem to have just clicked from the technical difficulties, and the other thing is we didn't just talk about this stuff about me. We talked about computers and voice on computer. We talked about some other things that weren't necessarily so focused on me and my story. And
well, that's what I like about the show.
Reminder.
I want it to be very organic in that sense, because, I'm learning a lot of new stuff. Like, I didn't know anything about, the voice activated stuff because I can see. So it's something that I just take for granted. So it's very fascinating to hear that, the perspective that you have on just everyday mundane things in my life, or things that you have to adapt to. I find that so fascinating.
Yeah. And the fact that I have to adapt to them, though, puts me in a position where, to me, a lot of that stuff is more of an experience than it is to you. Things that are mundane to you, and a lot of people have become experiences to me, whether they were enjoyable or not at the time, because it takes me to go through them. I think they become more valuable, and I savor them more than a lot of people who can see things do.
Well, I'll tell you what. I tell people the show is like 30 minutes, but I've had some episodes that go 45, because I don't want people to feel limited in what they need to say. I just know that 30-minute shows normally just feel better because people can sort of give 30 minutes. But look, if our show's 45 minutes, it's 45 minutes. I don't need to edit. The only thing I have to edit is just that one moment where we had a computer glitch, so I just need to cut out that part where Other than that, it's. But I don't really, because I love the sort of organicness. It feels real. We're just having a conversation. That's what people do when they're having mimosas. So that's what I wanted Mimosas with Michael to be. Yeah. And one of these days, I'm going to be in your town, and we're going to have some mimosas, and I'll get to help, and I'll get to say sponsored by Dom Perignon or whoever else is smart enough to sponsor your podcast. I'm fine with the local plate. Look, I love supporting local businesses. So if there's a local business, I'm totally down. I don't ever think that I just like to think big. You know what I'm saying? You got to start from the top and go there.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The fact that you feel like you deserve to be sponsored by Dom Perignon is the kind of attitude that's going to bring you to the attention of one of these other local or national companies. And
thank you.
It could be that a local company is willing to pay you, 3 or 4 figures a month to sponsor your podcast. And that could be a great relationship with you, because here's the thing that a lot of people don't get, because way too many people are focused on 6 and 7 figures. To me, a small amount of money that I can depend on coming in every month has a lot of value.
Well, and I'm also I'm a filmmaker.
A lot of value.
I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, director. I also have a small vlog that I do every once in a while. So it's not like it's just another part of my brand that just people. I want people to. It's not that they're investing in the podcast specifically; they're investing in my brand. So it's like it kind of pushes out to everything.
That's exactly it. I've had to have this conversation several times this year with people who have been in the podcasting game or the radio game a lot longer than I have. And I've had to explain to them, look, people aren't sponsoring my podcast. They are investing in my podcast. They are investing in themselves, my show, and my story. And they are gambling that my people, however many of them there are, and there's between 50 to 75 people that listen to every episode, they're gambling that my people are going to return that investment to them. And they're also betting on me. They're betting on the fact that a year from now the show could have 500 downloads or 1,000 downloads. A year from now my social media platform could be more extensive. But I tell you, I've had people get really just feisty mad at me because I have sponsors for the podcast, and they're like, "You don't have the numbers yet. You shouldn't be nobody should be paying you money." But I've reached out to.
I found mindset.
It is such a crazy mindset, but I've found people who want to invest in my podcast. I continue to find people who will do that either with cash or with products or services, and the old Ben Franklin thing: a penny saved is a penny earned. Well, if somebody can provide something that I use every month that saves me $100 or $200 or $300, and then somebody does that, I am all in with them. And by the way, they're investing. They believe that at some point, my show, at some point, Michael and Mimosas, if somebody's smart enough to sponsor you with some wine or some champagne, excuse me.
Yeah.
They're betting on you and your story. They're investing that.
Yeah.
You're going to continue to do the work. And of course, you have the added bonus because with you being a filmmaker and a writer, and you have the opportunity to create content that's going to expand your brand in a way that I can't. So the ceiling is very high for both of us. But I mean,
exactly.
just think about making this case. You speak to Dom Perignon or whoever. I don't know any of the smaller brands because I don't drink champagne except maybe once a year.
Yeah.
And you offer them what about the possibility of sponsoring a podcast plus product placement in my next movie? What would that be worth to you?
There you go. I love it.
So
you got to think. Yeah, you got to think like that. It's always got to be something. It's got to be a win-win on both sides. I feel like.
Yeah, you have to be willing to add value, and you have to be willing to ask, because that's the whole thing. They're not going to show up and tell you that they're interested in your show, if they've been watching your show, or that they think you'd be a good fit for them. No, you have to ask them. You have to explain it to them. You have to tell the story and make the case.
I will say this, and then we can close out. There's nothing true about that. Earlier this year, I started photography because I was traveling so much last year and I wanted to take better pictures. So I invested in a camera right at the beginning of the year, right? So yeah. I went to Vegas, started taking pictures with my dad and my friend, and then I went to Mazatlan with my roommate for our birthdays, and I was taking pictures there. I was going to take pictures in Europe and everything, but sadly, my father and I had to cancel our trip because of the virus. But then because of that, I took pictures wherever I went. I took small road trips throughout the day. On the weekends, and I would just take pictures anywhere. And then I have so many friends that are models, and I said, look, can I please just take pictures of you so I could learn how to use my camera and stuff? And my friends are like, yeah, I'll do it. I need pictures, and you're my friend. I want. And so funny. Solving problems. And here's the thing, I have a friend who's a tennis player, and I wanted to do more action shots. And I said, hey, let me take pictures of you and our friend playing tennis, because we did a tennis film earlier. A tennis web series earlier last year. My manager said, you know what? Let's just ask Fila to see if they'll give you product. And they'll probably, keeping in mind that they're probably going to say no. I said, fair enough. But I pitched them. I said, look, I'll do a behind the scenes thing, and we'll show off your product, because I'm a filmmaker. My friend has a camera. We can shoot everything, make it look beautiful. And I'm going to tell you something. They came back and said, yeah, what do you need? And they sent me $400 worth of product to give to the models just to shoot. I said, look, I'm a photographer. I'm new. And the pictures turned out great. The video turned out great. And all I had to do was ask. And all I had to do was say no. But they said yes. They proved me. They love the pictures. They have since promoted them online. They were part of an article. The pictures I took in Vegas were reposted by one of the casinos out there on Fremont Street that they used it for President's Day. You never know until you ask.
This is all okay. Now, to follow that up, the feel of being happy with your work, the Vegas people, that's all what we call social proof. You need to gather that together in a place where you can put that all in one place. And so when you reach out to Dom, you can say, see what we've done already? Just imagine what we can do for you. Yeah, you got to create that portfolio page, but it's a special page just for the work that you've done that's been appreciated. Yeah.
Like it's all there, I promise. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, you have to make it easy for these people to find just what they need, you know. So you need like a separate page of just the tennis stuff and just the Vegas stuff, because
it's all there,
these guys,
I promise.
yeah, you just need to make it easy for them so they don't have to look for what they need. You know, that's all. But it didn't. You know, you've been doing this a long time. I'm sure you know that stuff with your website. Your website's probably better than mine when it comes to providing people information and putting it where they need it. Which, you know, people can go to theblindblogger.net and find anything they need about me.
Perfect.
But I tell you, this has been great. This has been kind of off the rails at sometimes, but that's kind of our brands if you think about it.
Well, 2020 is off the rails, so you know it's perfect. It's perfect. So the blindblogger.net, that's where people can find you. They can reach out to you. Please check him out. Please read his blog. Reach out to him. Please read his book. Support this guy. We all have to support each other. We're all just trying to make it work. Maxwell, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show and just like letting it go wherever. It was a lot of fun.
It was, and I'm serious. I'm serious. Someday Corona's going to be behind us, and I'm going to be reaching out to past hosts, and I'm going to be saying, okay, I'm going to be in your area. Where can I stay? Where can I eat? And when do we record?
I would definitely, we'll definitely do a follow-up interview. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
I think it will too. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, take care. Be safe. I wish you well on the book, and please keep in touch. Okay.
All right, thank you. You stay safe as well, and you keep in touch as well. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
All right, everybody. This is Michael Cologne with Mimosas with Michael, and my guest Maxwell Ivey, theblindblogger.net. You can find this podcast on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can find podcasts. We're also going to be on YouTube and Instagram Live. I mean, not Instagram Live, Instagram TV. So please feel free to post and share and reach out to Maxwell and comment. Thank you, everybody, so much, and have a great year.